Now let's talk a bit of business. The National Palm Produce Association of Nigeria says Nigeria spends $600 million on palm oil importation annually. Alphonsus Iyang, the national president of the association, stated this in an interview on Tuesday in Abuja. He described the expenses as unhealthy for national development. Iyang said the money could be saved and injected into the economy if the palm oil subsector was given due attention by successive governments. And now joining us on the news to discuss this further is Strategy Consultant Dipo Oyewole. Dipo, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. A very huge number there, $600 million annually. So what are the factors that contribute to Nigeria's reliance on importing palm oil? In fact, this is my first time hearing of such. I didn't know we imported palm oil. Kind of weird, but I didn't know. So despite its potential for domestic production that we currently have, why then 600 million on importing alone?
Yes. Well, I believe that the challenge is we are not able to produce at scale because what we have are a lot of small pockets of business owners that produce palm oil somewhere, maybe in their compound, somewhere at the back of their of where they live. So the problem now is being able to get adequate investment to produce at scale. And why we sort of have this challenge right now is because, I mean, like the person you quoted rightly said, successive governments over decades haven't been able to adequately see how to invest very well into infrastructure, which one of the main reasons is power. Because there's no way you want to manufacture or process anything that you will not require constant electricity. So that is one challenge that they have had. And like every other sector, every other industry, that is one challenge that has lingered on for many, many decades and has led to the death and the stunting of the growth of a lot of industries and a lot of sectors.
I think we need to put the $600 million into concept instead of visualize what that money will do, right? So how does this amount spent on palm oil imports impact Nigeria's overall, economy and developmental goals?
Well, it does impact it a lot, and I would say negatively, unfortunately, because $600 million is a lot of money. That's almost $1 billion. That's almost $1 billion. And what we can do with $1 billion right now, the hospitals we could build, the schools we could build, the infrastructure we can put into bear. But that's not the reality we have right now. And also saying that that's a lot of FX leaving our system, if we're also being very blunt about the entire conversation. But 600 million is a lot. And that's, I believe that we don't need up to a quarter of it to invest right here to ensure that we're able to meet adequate demand locally and also to be able to export it. Because what makes this particular conversation, permit me to use the word quite unfortunate, is one of the major exporters of palm oil. I'm sure this is common knowledge, that they got their palm seeds right here in Nigeria a couple of decades ago. And right now they're either number one or number two in terms of exports of palm oil. And we also import from them, unfortunately. So the irony of that is not lost on anyone, but we must look forward to see how we address the lingering challenges that do not encourage manufacturing, processing, and the production of all these materials that we have within our system.
Now, is that country Malaysia or Indonesia? What country is this?
I believe that should be Malaysia.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned Malaysia, right? Because years back, and I think this was during the administration of Imoke, during the Cross River State, in Cross River State, I think there was a public-private partnership that was with them, and I think one of the major leading palm oil companies or distribution companies or manufacturing companies in Malaysia, and I think they went into a partnership where they got a part of a certain local government area where they went there to set up and they started producing, right? So we've seen, private public partnership situation. But I've not seen this locally, which takes me to my next question of how the government, or the Nigerian government in this case, can incentivize local production and reduce dependency on even imported palm oil, effectively.
Okay, well, in terms of the government intervening directly, I mean, access to low interest loans is one way to go. I believe that the government has that in place especially for those who are into manufacturing and production. Okay, so yes, that is also incentivizing it. But however, the question now is that only applies if you're producing at scale. And how many organizations out there are actually producing at scale? Because it's only when you're producing at scale that you can have access to such financial facilities. So I believe that because of the challenges that have bedeviled that particular sector and industry, a lot of people that erstwhile would have paid attention to it or gone into the business of producing or processing palm oil have not gone into it because they don't see the right incentives to it. And it's not just enough to access the loans. Like I said before, we talked about power. If there's no power and you have access to loans, you find out that 40% of your overheads go into producing power for your plants, and how much are you going to sell it? That's where you then find that sometimes it's cheaper. You get cheaper products that are imported as opposed to the ones produced locally, because the cost of production locally is very, very expensive, because most of these manufacturing outfits need to provide their own power. And either way you look at it, they have to make a profit. So when you look at all the numbers, like they say right now, that the math isn't mathing. The math, it will not just math. And you find that when you have to add your markup and everything, it's a lot more expensive than what you'd have if you were importing. So some of them just say, you know what, we leave the headache of manufacturing and providing our own power. We'd rather import, make our profits, and then rinse and repeat.
Well, rinse and repeat has also led us to plenty of exits of multinationals. But hey, Dipo, many thanks. We appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you for having me.